Communication Introductions by Lundi TV. Welcome.
Introduction to communication. What is communication? Communication is the giving, receiving, or exchanging of information, opinions, or ideas by writing, speech, or visual means, or a combination of the three so that the material communicated is completely understood by everyone concerned. So the terms and concepts used. What is a communicator? A communicator may be a sender or a receiver. So these are the two main participants in the communication. Typically, their roles are reversed regularly. The sender is the person or body responsible for sending the message. The sender can be an individual, a group, or a company, a department, or even a government or a political party. The sender is the person or body which receives the message. The receiver can be an individual or an organization or a company or a large group of people. So what is information? Information is the processed data, or you can say that information is the material from which the communication can be constructed. It is actually context put across the listener, reader, or viewer. What is a message? Having defined or decided on the information to be conveyed, the sender puts it into the best form in a process called encoding. When information has been encoded, it is known as the message. This simply refers to the form the communication takes, i.e. letters, memo, telephone calls, or even something as simple as a smile, a shrug of the shoulder, or some other gesture. So we can say that message is the encoded information. So what is encoding? Encoding is the process by which the sender converts the idea into a message by using verbal or nonverbal mediums of communication. These can be words, signs, gestures, symbols, or body movements. In order to ensure that the message is well understood, the sender uses words and nonverbal signals that the receiver is similar with. What is decoding? Decoding is the process of translating words, signs, and symbols into meanings. Successfully, decoding is the correct understanding of the intent of the message as transmitted by the sender. Communication. What is a medium? This is the large group of ways of communicating within which the particular communication can be classified. There are three main media. We have written communication and oral communication. Written communication can be like letters, memos, books, articles, notices, or on posters. Oral communication, this is any method of using the spoken words such as meetings, telephone calls, interviews, lectures, and informal discussions. Thirdly, we have visual communication. Visual communication, you can use a drawing, photograph, or other means of putting over a message by pictorial means. Channel. What is a channel? The specific medium or pipeline used to transmit the message. This is the physical means by which the message is transmitted. The channel is the vehicle that carries the message to the receiver. For written communication, it might be a notice board, an internal mail service, a memo, report, radio, or the public postal service. For oral communication, it might be a personal interview, a committee meeting, or a public telephone system. For visual communication, it might be a computer, printer, a printing press, or a fax system. Noise and barriers. So what are noise and barriers? This is the name given to any factor which prevents the proper exchange of information apart from those caused by the sender or the receiver. Noise can be physical, such as the sound of traffic, typewriting, a telephone bells which interrupt a meeting, or it can be some other forms of interference, e.g. a bad telephone connection, poor handwriting in a letter, a computer failure which caused the loss of data or a fax line, or even a conflicting message, or if the speaker's facial expression conveys a different message from that being given orally. What is environment? Part of the context, that which surrounds and provides a basis for the meaning and stroke interpretation of a message. It can be physical, temporary, relational, or cultural. So physical, this is the surroundings. Temporary, this is the point in time. Relational, this is the existing relationship between communicators with their friends or strangers. Cultural, this is the language and behavior community the communicator comes from. What is feedback? This is the receiver's response to the sender's message. The response can be both verbal or non-verbal. It is an important factor in the communication process because it helps the sender to know whether the message has been understood or not. So the purpose of communication. So number one is communicating to inform. The second is communicating to persuade, communicating to establish credibility, communicating to establish goodwill, and communicating to inquire, communicating to for social interaction. Yeah. So let's go to the principles strokes essentials of effective communication. What are the importance of effective communication? Number one, you can say that these are the 7 C's of communication. So here I'll say that the importance of an effective communication is clarity, consciousness, simple, consistency, medium, relevancy, completeness, correctness, and courtesy. So let's go one by one. So what is clarity? Clarity is being clear about the message you want to deliver. What is conciseness? Communication should be brief. Do not include too many details that will bore the receiver. The message should be direct. So what is simple? Simple is avoiding the use of big words, jargon, and slang. They only confuse the receiver and will lead to communication breakdown. What is consistency? This is making sure that your theme remains the same. Avoid bringing in details which are not centered to the main message. Medium. So medium, there are several ways you can deliver your message. The trick is, it is to use the right one. The right media is one with the great accuracy, with the large likelihood or audience comprehension, with the lowest financial cost, and fast. So what is relevancy? Relevancy, when you say relevancy, is that you communicate only what is appropriate and relevant to the audience. Completeness. Now what is completeness? Communicated message must be complete. Completeness refers to providing enough information so that the intent of the message is understood by the receiver. Let's go to correctness. The sender must give correct facts and express them in the correct language. Courtesy. We must create friendship with all those to whom we communicate. Workmates, customers, clients, etc. Respond positively to those who create them with respect and kindness. Use words such as please, thank you, sorry, congratulations, and others. What is ICT? What is information communication technology? Can be defined as diverse set of technological tools and resources used to communicate. and to create, disseminate, store, and manage information. These include any communication device or applications encompassing radio, television, cellular phones, computers, and network hardware and software, satellite systems, and as well as the use of various services and applications associated with them, such as video conferencing and distance learning. There are 6 components of ICT system. We have data, which are raw facts and figures; hardware, this is the physical components; software, the name given to computer programs; information is the data that is converted to give it a meaning; procedures, a series of actions conducted in a certain order to make sure the system runs smoothly; people, data is entered by humans, for example a keyboard. So what is the role of ICT in communication? ICT supports the communication and cooperation of people in their organization and in the creation and exchange of knowledge. ICT supports the external relations of the company, i.e. communication and cooperation with customers, suppliers, and partners. ICT, communication technology, and virtual reality will support the remote communication between people with a quality near to face-to-face communication. Information technology supports new forms of electronic documents, multimedia, and virtual reality is useful technology in support of information exchange and learning process. ICT strongly enhances the amount of knowledge in the products of company. So let's go to topic 2, which talks about the communication process. So what is a communication channel? A communication channel is a means through which a message is sent and received. In other words, it's the method of communication used. So what are the types of communication channels? Number 1, we have face-to-face. Number 2, we have telephone. Number 3, we have emails. Number 4, we have letters, memos, email notices. What is the advantages of written communication? So the advantage of a written communication, number 1 is that it has a permanent record. Number 2 is precise and explicit. When we say precise and explicit, we say written communications presents the information more accurately and clearly. Number 3, we can say it is used as a reference. Number 4, it's delegation of authority. Number 5, we have easy presentation of complex matters. Number 6, we have longevity. Number 7, for effective communication. 8, maintaining image. 9, proper information. 10, ease to verify. So we have the disadvantages of a written communication. It is expensive, it is time consuming, useless for illiterate person, difficult to maintain secrecy, lack of flexibility, delay in response, delay in decision making, cost in record keeping, complex words, lack of direct relation. So we have the stages in the communication process or the communication cycle, so the basic concepts of transmitting and receipt of information. So in the information goes to the sender. The sender is the one which encodes, then it goes to the channel or the medium or the message, then it goes to the receiver, then it goes back to the sender in form of a feedback. So what are the communication barriers? This is the name given to any factor which prevents the proper exchange of information apart from those caused by the sender or the receiver. So what are the barriers to effective communication? We have lack of sensitivity to receiver, language barriers, insufficient knowledge of the subject, information overload, emotional interference, physical distractions, channel barriers, long communication chains, lack of interest, lack of knowledge, poor communication skills, lastly, lack of feedback or inadequate feedback. Strategies for overcoming barriers to effective communication. How can we overcome those barriers? So we have clarify ideas before communication, communicate according to the need of the receiver, develop writing skills, use of simple language, reduction and elimination of noise levels, active listening, emotional state, proper media selection. So what are the ethics in communication? Ethics is defined as moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conduct of an activity. So characteristic of ethical communication. We have conveying the point without offending the audience, maintain a relation with the audience, avoid withholding crucial information, well-organized value system, accuracy of the information is necessary. So topic 3, classification of communication. So we have types of communication. Number 1 is formal communication, informal communication, internal communication. 4 we have external communication. 5 interpersonal communication. Then intrapersonal communication. So when we begin by formal communication, this is when communication occurs by following the prescribed rules and procedures of the organization. Formal communication is governed by the established chain of command. What are the uses of formal communication? Number 1, issuing instructions, to inform, for coordination, to persuade and to motivate. Secondly, we have informal communication. When communication does not follow any prescribed rules or procedures, it is called informal communication. The basis of informal communication is spontaneous relationship among the participants. Informal communication is sometimes more powerful and more effective than formal communication. Uses of informal communication. Number 1, to supplements formal communication. Informal communication is useful in supporting the social functions of groups, giving or getting help, gets work done. Then number 3, we have internal communication. Internal communication simply refers to the flow of information to the internal participants of an organization. It happens only within the organization. The main purpose of this communication is to ensure smooth functions of organizational activities. Internal communication may be of 2 types, that is vertical and horizontal communication. So in vertical communication, when information flows between superior and subordinates of an organization, it is known as vertical communication. Vertical communication can be of 3 types. We have downward communication, upward communication, and diagonal communication. Downward communication occurs when information flows from superior to subordinates. Upward communication occurs when information flows from subordinates to superiors. Purpose. Through upward communication, subordinates convey their responses, reactions, and performance feedback to their superiors. Diagonal or cross communication. Diagonal communication occurs when information flows between persons at different levels who have no direct reporting relationships. Purpose. Dialogue communication is used to speed information flow, to improve understanding, and to coordinate effectively for the achievement of organizational goals. What is horizontal communication? When communication flows among people holding the same position or ranks in the organization. What are the uses of internal communication? 1. Improving the effectiveness of the organization. 2. Informs. 3. Problem solving. This is by providing a chain for everyone's ideas and opinion. 3. It creates a climate of openness within the organization. It creates a climate of openness within the organization. 5. Through downward communication, supervisors send organizational goals, policies, job assignments, orders, instructions, etc. to their subordinates. So we have what is external communication, where an organization communicates with external or outside parties. External parties include customers, suppliers, investors, bankers, insurance companies. Exchange information with the outside parties. External communication employs the use of letters, PR, advertising, emails, presentations, etc. So the uses of external communication can be used for assignments. So we go to interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is an exchange of information between two or more people. Successful interpersonal communication is when the organization is when the message senders and the message receivers understand the message. Uses of interpersonal communication. 1. Giving and collecting information. 2. Influence the attitude and behavior of others. 3. Form contacts and maintain relationships. 4. Make sense of the world and our experiences in it. 5. Express personal needs and understand the needs of others. 6. Give and receive emotional support. 7. Make decisions and solve problems. So what are intrapersonal communication? Intra with INTRA. Intrapersonal communication is an individual's internal use of language or thoughts. It can be useful to envision intrapersonal communication as occurring in the mind of an individual. The individual communicates in his/her mind through the process of thinking and feeling. Intrapersonal communication enables an individual to shape self-concepts and develop one's convictions. It helps one to think, plan, analyze, and interpret ideas and messages. It also provides the opportunity to think of new ideas and be creative about new decisions, approaches, and solutions. Interpersonal communications can encompass. You use it when you think things through, interpret events, interpret message of others, respond to your own experiences, respond to your interrelations with others. Uses of intrapersonal communication. 1. Enables one to effectively communicate with others. 2. Increases focus, concentration, and performance. 3. Enables one think things through. 4. Enable one interpret messages and events. So let's go to topic 4, which talks about forms of communication. Different forms of communication. We have the first example of form of communication is oral communication. Second one is posture. Third is eye contact. Fourth is paralanguage or paralinguistics. Yeah. So let's begin with what is oral communication. Oral communication includes sounds, words, language, and speaking. Language is used to have originated from sounds and gestures. There are many languages spoken in the world. The basic of the language form is gender, class, profession, geographical area, age, group, and other social elements. Speaking is an effective way of communicating and is, again, classified into two types. We have intrapersonal and public speaking. Interpersonal communication and public speaking. Good oral communication is an inseparable part of business communication. In a business, you come across people from various ages, cultures, and races. Fluent oral communication is if essential when with dealing with in business meetings. So advantages of oral communication. We have verbal communication. Verbal communication has the following advantage: saving of time, saving of money, and more effective and knowledge of reaction of message. So when we say saving of time, under this form of communication, the messages are communicated immediately without consuming any time. Oral communication is the best option during an argument condition and when immediate action is needed. Saving money. Saving of money, it saves money as it needs no help of any particular media. Yeah. So disadvantages of oral communication. Number 1, oral communication may have the following disadvantages. 1, lack of proof of message. When you say lack of proof of message, the greatest disadvantages of is that there is no proof of the message communicated because it's oral. Number 2, not suitable for future reference, since there is nothing in written supporting the message communicated orally. It is not suitable for future reference. It is if there is any dispute of any point of the message. So let me repeat: if there is any dispute of any point of the message, it cannot be helped in any future. But I think this point is wrong because right now when it's oral communication, we can record it for future reference. I think this point is overrated. So the third point is not suitable in case of distance. If the receiver and the sender of the message are far from each other, this message of communication is not suitable because it will increase the cost of communication. So what is nonverbal communication? Nonverbal communication is the way in which we express our feelings, emotions, attitudes, opinions, and views through our body movements. Body language is a nonverbal way of communication. Body gestures and physical contacts convey a lot of information. Body gesture matters a lot when you are communicating verbally to someone. Folded arms and crossed legs are some of the signals conveyed by a body posture. Physical contacts like shaking hands, pushing, patting and touching expresses the feeling of intimacy. Facial expressions, gestures, and eye contacts are all different ways of communication. Reading facial expressions can help you know a person better. Creative and aesthetic nonverbal communications include singing, music, dancing, and sculpturing. Signals and sign language are also included in non-verbal communication. When we communicate, non-verbal cues can be as important, or in some cases even more important, than there we say. than what we say. Nonverbal communication can have a great impact on the listeners and the outcome of the communication. Nonverbal communication includes facial expressions, the tone and the pitch of the voice, gestures displayed through body language, and the physical distance between the communicators. Yeah. These nonverbal signals can give clues and additional information and meaning over and above spoken verbal communication. Nonverbal message allow people to 1. Reinforce or modify what is said in words. 2. Convey information about their emotional state. 3. Define or reinforce the relationship between people. 4. Provide feedback to the other person. 5. Regulate the flow of communication. Nonverbal communication includes 1. Body movements. 2. Posture. 3. Eye contact. 4. Paralanguage. 5. Closeness or personal space. 6. Facial expression. 7. Physiological changes. So what is body language or body movements? Body movements include gestures, postures, head and hand movements, or whole body movements. Body movements can be used to reinforce or emphasize what a person is saying and also offer information about the emotions and attitudes of a person. However, it is also important for body movements to conflict with what is said. A skilled observer may be able to detect such discrepancies in behavior and use them as a clue to what someone is really feeling. Eye contact, also known as oculesics. So eye contact, this is the science of the movement, stroke, grammar of our eyes. Eye contact serves 3 main purposes. 1. To give and receive feedback. 2. To let a partner know when it is their turn to speak. Thirdly, to communicate something about a relationship between people. So by eye contact, eye grammar, what eye communicates. The first one is staring eyes. Too much eye contact which show superiority or lack of respect, a threatening attitude or a wish to insult. Thirdly, too little eye contact, it indicates dishonesty, impoliteness, insincerity, and also shyness. Thirdly, withdrawal of eye contact. This is considered a sign of submission. Fourthly, we have paralanguage. Paralanguage relates to all aspects of the voice which are not strictly part of the verbal message. Includes the tone and the pitch of the voice, the speed and the volume at which a message is delivered, and pauses and hesitations between words. These signs can serve to indicate feeling about what is being said. Emphasizing particular words can imply whether or not feedback is required. A voice that has tremors will not make feel very positive about the speaker. A high speed of talking is in a high speed of talking in interviews or negotiations or presentations will not instill confidence in the interviewers or audience. Closeness and personal space. The study of personal space is termed proxemics. Every culture has different levels of physical closeness appropriate to different types of relationship, and individuals learn this distance from the society in which they grow up. Some people violate an appropriate distance. People may feel uncomfortable or defensive. These actions may well be open to misinterpretations. In Western society, 4 distances have been defined according to the relationship between the people involved. The 4 main space zones distance include intimate distance, touching of 45 centimeters, personal distance 45 centimeters to 1.2 meters, social distance 1.2 meters to 3 meters, public distance 3 meters. These 4 distances are associated with the 4 main types of relationship: intimate, personal, social, and public. Each of the distances are divided into 2, giving a close phase and far phase, this making 8 divisions in all. It is worth noticing that these distances are considered the norm in Western society. Advantages of nonverbal communication. Number 1, complementary. Number 2, easy presentation. 3, substituting. 4, assenting. 5, repeat. 6, help to illiterate people. 7, help to handicapped people. 8, attractive presentation. 9, reducing wastage of time. 10, quick expression of message. So what are the disadvantages of nonverbal communication? The first one is vague and impreciseness. Nonverbal communication is quite vague and imprecise. This is because this communication there is no use of words or languages which expresses clear meanings to the receiver. No dictionary can accurately clarify them. Their meaning vary according to culture and context. Number 2, continuous. It is important to stop talking in oral communication because it is generally not possible to stop nonverbal cues. Also, spoken language has a structure that makes it easy to tell when a subject has changed, for instance, or to analyze its grammar. Nonverbal does not lead itself to this kind of analysis. Number 3, multi-channel. While watching someone's eye, you may miss something significant in a hand gesture. Everything is happening at once, and therefore it may be confusing to try to keep up with everything. Most of us simply do not do so, at least not concisely. Number 4, culture bound. Different cultures have different meaning and interpretation of different nonverbal messages. Number 5, long conversations are not possible. In nonverbal communication, long conversations and necessarily explanations are not possible. And necessary explanations are not possible. No party can discuss the particular issue of the message. Number 6, difficult to understand. It is difficult to understand and requires a lot of repetition in nonverbal communication. Since it uses gestures, facial expressions, eye contacts, touches, etc. for communicating with others, which may not be understandable for the simple and foolish people. 7. Not everybody prefers. Not everybody prefers to communicate through nonverbal communication with others. Sometimes it cannot create an impression upon people or listeners. It is less influential and cannot be used everywhere. It cannot be used as a public tool for communication. Lack of formalities. Nonverbal communication does not follow any rules, formalities, or structures like verbal. In most instances, people unconsciously lack of formalities. Nonverbal communication does not follow any rules, formalities, or structures. People unconsciously and habitually engage in nonverbal communication by moving the various parts of their bodies. Costly. In some cases, nonverbal communications involves huge cost. For example, neon signs, PowerPoint presentations, cinema, etc. are very much costly compared to other forms of communication. Distortion of information. Since it uses gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, touch, signs, sounds, paralanguages, etc. for communication with others, it is great possibilities in distortion of information in nonverbal communication. So let's go to written communication. Written communication is writing the words which you want to communicate. Good written communication is essential for business purposes. Email, reporting, articles, and memos are some of the ways of using written communication in business. Written communication can be used for formal businesses communication and also for informal communication purposes. Mobile SMS is an example of informal written communication. Advantages of written communication. The written communication can be edited and amended many times before it is communicated. This is one of the main advantages of using written as the major means of communication in business activities. No need of personal contact. In written communication, there is no need of personal contact. Number 3, it's economical. Number 4, it is written proof. When we say written proof, written communication provides a proof for future reference. If there is any dispute, the message may be referred to. What are the disadvantages of written communication? Number 1 is delay. Number 2 is lack of secrecy. Number 3 is costly. So what is visual communication? Visual communication is visual display of information like photos, graphs, signs, symbols, and designs. Television and video clips are the electronic forms of video or visual communication. Advantages of visual communication: conveys information in a fast manner, better understanding and retention, impactful, effective, removes ambiguities, captivates and retains audience attention. What are the disadvantages of visual communication? Number one, it's costly. When we say it's costly, we say the visual methods of communication are more costly than those of other methods. To draw maps, charts, diagrams is costly. This is why only large companies or organizations can use this technique. High quality images, pictures on graphs require additional sources to produce. Besides, using low quality visuals can be proven to reduce credibility. The second one is complex presentation. Sometimes visual presentations of information become complex, thus the receivers cannot understand the meaning of the presentation. Thirdly, incomplete method. This technique is considered as an incomplete method. Visual presentation is not sufficient to communicate effectively and clearly, but also it can be successfully used with oral communication. Also, only a small amount of information can be conveyed via a graphic. A very detailed visual-like look cluttered overwhelms the reader and reduces its impact. Number 4, that it's time consuming. Making a graph or pie chart requires more time and effort, and it involves selecting, compiling, and presenting a large amount of information in a visually pleasing manner, whereas oral communication takes no time to exchange information. Number 5, it's distracting. Visuals can be distracting, shifting the focus away from the presentation itself. For example, use of fancy, illegible font can actually distract members of the audience from what is being said. A visual can also close up the viewer if it is too distractive or controversial. Number 6, problem for general readers. General people are not prefers to communication through visual communication with others. Sometimes it cannot create an impression upon people or listeners. It is less influential and cannot be used everywhere. So what is audio-visual communication? This is the use of both a sound and a visual component for communication. It involves the use of slide tape, presentation films, television programs, church services, and live theater productions. Disadvantages of audio-visual communication: 1. Technical problem. 2. Distractions. 3. Expensive. 4. Time-consuming. 5. Space. 6. Convenience. Let's go to the official etiquette, protocols, and diplomacy. What is an etiquette? What is etiquette? Etiquette is defined as the code of ethical behavior regarding professional practice or action among the members of a profession in their dealings with each other. It includes conventional requirements as to social behaviors and conduct as established in any class of or community or for any occasion. Communication etiquette therefore involves courteous and well thought our interactions between individuals or groups that includes information, speech, attentive and active listening, and a sincere grasp or understanding of what is being communicated. So about the need / the importance of etiquette. Etiquette makes you a cultured individual. Etiquette teaches you the ways to talk, to walk, and most importantly, behave in the society. Etiquette is essential for a lasting first expression. The way you interact with your superiors, parents, fellow workers, friends speak a lot about your personality and upbringing. Etiquette enables the individual to earn respect and appreciation in the society. No one would feel like talking to a person who does not know how to speak or behave in the society. Etiquette inculcates a feeling of trust and loyalty in the individual. One becomes more responsible and mature. Etiquette helps the individual to value relationships. So what are the communication etiquette? Number one, acknowledge communication. When someone communicates with you, respond in a way that indicates you got the message and you will act appropriately. In some cases, the response will simply be a thank you. Provide follow-up on previous communication. When you have had a communications, there is an expectation of something being done. You take the action as communicated. The remaining thing to be done is to communicate what has been done. Be respectful in all communications. There is never a time when you should be disrespectful of those who you communicate with, even if you are responding to communications that were disrespectful to you. Communicate new information to those who need the information. Whether you obtain the information that is generally not known by others, provide people with this information. The key is to think of who needs to know the information and what part of the information will be useful to those people. Communicate